Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Why one day late? Well, I will just say that it's easier to book an appointment with the Pope than arrange a podcast with Alasdair Mackenzie. But we made it, finally made it. So we are here. Alasdair, we are here to talk about Lazio Salernitana, but there are plenty of other things to talk about this week. First, Sari said this is the real test, more than Marseille Lazio. Can we say that Lazio passed the test against Salernitana?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I should probably say if that's the case, then you should consider doing a podcast with the Pope. I think people would love to hear that. Get the Pope's thoughts on Lazio. He's a big football fan, as we know, so he might agree to Vittorio.
I don't know. You could be so upset about that, so keep it secret.
But yeah, going back to football, yeah, I think I was really pleasantly surprised by how easily they passed that test. I don't know about you, but I think, well, both of us were saying before the match that we expected it to be more difficult than it looked. If you saw Lazio's record in these post-European matches, it was horrendous. I mean, drop Cagliari and then the defeats against Bologna and Verona. Not just defeats, but awful defeats. So yeah, a 3-0 win. It was never really in doubt, to be honest. I mean, Salernitana hit the woodwork a couple of times in the second half, but it was very comfortable afternoon. And so yeah, massive credit to them.
Yeah, I would add that I thought that Salernitana's player would have come to Rome to prove everybody wrong, that they have no attachment to Lazio and Lotito, and for this, giving a little extra to Lazio and play even a little bit more harder than the usual. And I think Lazio players, especially in the first half, show that they were a little bit tired because, playing against Marseille is not easy. There hasn't been that much rotation. I was thinking that maybe there could be something more, but it's even true that Zaccagni just came back from injury. Lazar is out and probably will miss even Juventus match. So Sarri didn't have that many options. But at the end of the day, I think the only moment where Lazio struggled was the beginning of the second half, where Juric came in and hit the crossbar, and then a couple of minutes later, I think Ribéry hit the post. But apart from that, Lazio controlled the team, controlled the match. Another clean sheet, Alasdair. That's probably another very good news, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does feel like the team is gelling more and more with each passing week. I think that the team that was starting the season has been tweaked a little bit, has been altered here and there. I think the obvious thing being Danilo Cataldi being the final piece of the jigsaw really in midfield. Sarri seems to have already completely changed his mind about this idea of Alberto and Milinkovic not being able to play together, or like I suggested at the time, he never really thought that at all, and he was just trying to give Alberto a kick up the ass. So yeah, I mean, it's really positive. I would say, putting Lazio in a position where I think if they come through the next couple of, the week really after the international break, if they come through that strongly, I think we've got reason to start being quite excited about this team, because they have been showing improvement. They have been gaining continuity in performances. And what a test after this with Juventus and Napoli either side of a trip to Russia against Lokomotiv.
Yeah, before talking about Danilo Cataldi, we have to talk about him because he has been called for the national team. Can we say that Jose Mourinho was right? He said that this Roma is not better than last year, and we have to agree, right? Last year they had Pedro, this year they don't have it. And that's, I think, it's the biggest difference, right? Pedro, what a player again. 3 goals in the last 3 Serie A matches, but it's not only goal scoring. He's a very smart player. He provides assists. He makes always the right movement, creates spaces for the other players. I mean, yeah, Mourinho, you're right. Roma is not as good as last year because of Pedro.
I also saw, I think it was Corriere dello Sport wrote that all 4 of his goals so far have been scored under the Curva Sud. So sending a message perhaps to the team that he left. So, I mean, yeah, it's been massive to see him hit that run of scoring form. We were already really impressed with him before he started scoring all these goals, but now that he's adding that too, makes a huge difference. Felipe Anderson has 3 of his own, and I think he's got 3 and 3 assists. Immobile is up to 10 already, which is incredible. If you consider that at the start of the season, people were asking serious questions about how he will adapt to playing in a 4-3-3, given he's struggled in that system with Italy. No worries. No worries. I mean, leading the Serie A scoring charts easily all season so far.
We said it. We said instead that with Maurizio Sarri, he would have scored hundreds of goals. And we said it at the beginning of the season. He being top scorer in Serie B with Pescara playing 4-3-3. So he already proved to be perfect for that. And at Torino. He already proved to be perfect for that. Again, we have to reiterate, the big difference is the wingers, Chiesa and Berardi, are not type of wingers that provide assists. They finish the action. Felipe Anderson, Luis Alberto, Pedro are more assist provider than Chiesa. So that's the biggest difference between the national team and Lazio. It's not the 4-3-3 the problem. And again, Alasdair, what a match Ciro Immobile played. When he was warming up, he went twice to the physical trainer. You could see he wasn't feeling well. He had a little issue with his leg. And even at the beginning of the match, he was not running perfectly. Still, he made a huge goal. And still, he had an amazing match. He was still coming back, tracking the player, grabbing ball from the defense, etc. I mean, I lost words. I don't know what to say more about Ciro Immobile.
Well, I think we find ourselves saying that every few days now at this stage. But yeah, it is a bit of a concern though, because I do, I imagine he really wants to play as much as possible. You also look at the squad, as we've talked about, and you think he kind of has to play as much as possible because there's no one else to step in for him. But at the same time, I really hope that there's no aggravation of an injury happening here, because I did see yesterday that he had been training separately with the Italy squad as well once he got to camp there. So, I think you can trust in the medical staff of the national team and Lazio to do what's best for him, but you do need to be very careful with a player like Ciro because he's so valuable. Were you surprised? Because I was a bit surprised after Lazio's 3rd goal, at least, or even earlier, that Sarri wasn't making more changes to the team.
Yeah, the thing is, he made 4 substitutions, and I said, okay, Ciro is not feeling well. We already 3-0. The match is over. Why don't he sub him? And honestly, I counted twice because I thought maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we did 5 substitutions, but we didn't. And I don't understand what's going on. In the last 5 matches in Serie A, Murici played 5 minutes against Atalanta. That's all. I think that's a clear signal of Sarri not trusting anymore Murici. But even so, in a match like this, 3-0, it's over. Why did you kept Immobile for 90 minutes? We're lucky that the ref didn't give extra time. I think he thought the match was over. But even if you don't put Murici, you could have bring in Raul Moro and put Pedro as a number 9 to rest a little bit Ciro Immobile. So I don't know. As I said, Ciro wasn't 100%, so you could have saved him 10, 11 minutes at least, or even 20, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't necessarily needed at that stage. I mean, you don't even need to necessarily, like you say, bring on another striker, because at 3-0 up at home against Salernitana, you're fine. Like you're not going to throw that one away very easily. Despite the kind of Jekyll and Hyde Lazio we've seen this season, I think that's asking a lot. So, yeah, I mean, international break. I do hope that we get the players back that we've sent away. It is always a bit of a concern at international breaks, especially when the team's starting to click, starting to gel, things are going really well. But at the same time, Immobile has a point to prove. At the last international break, when he did have an injury and he missed those games, that was seen as a potential problem for him. That might be the time for Italy to move on, to try something new, kind of ahead of the World Cup cycle. But this is not massive for him, because this huge game on Friday here at the Olimpico again, against Switzerland, where they can essentially win the group, more or less. And he's going to be desperate to play in that game, isn't he? He's going to be wanting to do absolutely everything to put himself in a place to be starting that match and to be, having a chance to change people's minds again.
Yeah, Shiro. He wants to play every single minute, and when he play, he give 100%. So this is a problem. And again, this brings me to the question, the usual question, Alasdair, when there's the international break. Is it an advantage for Lazio, or it's a problem because things will start clicking? But on the other side, maybe you can have back Lazzari, Zaccagni has 2 weeks to train, etc. What's your point of view? Is it an advantage that the international break comes now, or not for Lazio?
I'd say probably not, because of the timing right now. I mean, I do think there's been a very brutal run of games in the last 3 weeks. And, although there are lots of international players going away, the majority of the squad will have a bit more time to recover energy. But I think Juventus, this would have been a great time to play them, being the next game at home as well. And it just does feel like there's good momentum behind Lazio at the moment. But you do need to be careful. I mean, it's not easy. The football calendar now is just ridiculous. I mean, it's exhausting, watching football as a fan, because there's so much on all the time. So you can only imagine what it's like for a player if you're getting tired as a journalist or as a supporter trying to keep track of everything. So I think it's probably good that so many of those players. Zaccagni is a good point as well, because he's been so unfortunate really so far, and he'll be a massive boost once he's fit again.
Yeah, going every twice a week to the stadium, it's quite heavy for a guy like me. And we hope that season ticket will be available coming next week, because still they're not. And I think I already pay Murici in this first couple of months of the season with all the tickets I bought for watching Lazio for me and the family. So I hope that Lazio will start the season tickets sales as soon as possible. There are rumors that Lazzari could be not fit for Lazio Juventus, which is a shame. I thought Lazzari was clicking. And but on the other side, we have to say that his eye didn't play that bad against Salernitana. I saw finally some improvement from him. So that's another positive sign, I would say, looking forward.
Yeah, I think he was pushing forward a lot more, getting the opportunity to push forward a lot more into kind of attacking positions, which is good. But yeah, I think that the whole defence in general just feels very settled. Apparently, this was the first time since April that Lazio have played the same starting 11 in back-to-back Serie A matches, which is kind of surprising, really, considering that goes back into Inzaghi's time as well. So I think that does go to show. I mean, obviously, Lazzari those three fullbacks have been the most regularly rotated, but I think it does go to show that Sarri is finding some continuity in selection. The team is benefiting from this repetition of performances. Lazio's front three is the most prolific in the league, I think, at this point. Mostly thanks to Ciro, but the others are chipping in as well. So yeah, I mean it is good. I guess the squad depth is always the question as usual. But if your strongest 11 is strong enough to play some of the football they have been playing, you've got to be pretty happy. And I think the development of players and of the team is kind of shown by the fact that Cataldi's been given this call up as well, which is I'm just so happy for him. I mean, second time in his career he's been called up to the squad, but he's never actually earned a cap before. So I mean, he deserves it though, doesn't he, Vittorio? From what we've seen so far.
Definitely, definitely. And it's a very positive sign because, again, as you were saying, you can see that one of the biggest difference is that Sarri is giving the chance to pretty much every player. Well, Escalante, I don't think he played a minute, but apart from that, pretty much every player had their chance. And Cataldi took it. Cataldi took it. I don't know if we can say he's one of the starting 11 now, but he started playing in big matches like Atalanta, Fiorentina, and this against Salernitana. He played well. I think he has the quality to play in that position, and obviously playing the 4-3-3, that is the same scheme we play in the national team, help him. We have to mention that he's been called because a couple of players withdraw from the national team, but still being back in that group is a huge sign for him. And you know, a lot of Lazio fans in the past have criticized Cataldi, saying he's not good enough, he's a Serie B player. I think we've been too harsh with him. And I really think he can be a very good player. And it improved the depth, right? I was thinking yesterday, finally, Lazio has plenty of options in the midfield that honestly didn't happen in the past. A little bit because Inzaghi didn't love rotate there, and also because we didn't have that quality. We seen Basic starting, and you can see that this is a quality player. Cataldi starting. Now we have Leva on the bench. He's going to be, playing instead of Cataldi sometimes. Akva Pro is still a good player. I think it's a quality bench player. So we starting to have a nice, plenty of options there. So I think that's very important, right, for the 4-3-3 and the Sarri plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to see players like Cataldi developing from being one of one of the kind of given bench players or reserve players into being a starting player. And I think he now is. I think he is a maybe not a nailed on starter, but definitely the first choice option in that position now. But yeah, there are still gaping holes. The wingers don't have much backup. Chiro doesn't have much backup. The defense doesn't have an awful lot of backup. So the midfield at least is looking a little bit stronger. Yeah. It's still definitely a drop off from Milinkovic and Alberto to Basic and Agpagpro.
Yeah, the biggest problem I have at the moment are the wingers, as you were mentioning, because Felipe Anderson and Pedro started all the last matches, and Felipe Anderson is the only player who started all the matches this season for Lazio. With Zaccagni often injured, we don't have that many options because Sarri spoke about Ramoro. He said he's young, he's talented, but he don't want to put too much pressure on him. So that's why he don't consider him starting. And if Ramoro doesn't start, then you have only one option, Zaccagni. This means that Pedro or Felipe Anderson will have to play. Maybe they're going to rotate, but, you need, I think, if you're playing a 4-3-3, 4 wingers that could start. So if you consider that Ramoro cannot start, then I think you have a problem there. The season is long, and if Felipe Anderson doesn't rest a couple of matches at least, I'm concerned of how he will play in end of the season, May. So I think that's the question mark we have, and maybe in January we're going to fill the gap. I don't know.
Well, yeah, wait for the massive spending spree to happen in January. I mean, once Newcastle signed Thomas Strakosha for 80 million euros, then we're going to have the budget to go in big. Are you believing any of these Strakosha to Newcastle speculation at all?
Well, I think it's a big problem because if Lazio doesn't renew the contract to Strakosha, then he could leave in June for free. So at that point, it's better to sell him in January. Again, if you sell Strakosha, then you need to fill the gap. Reina in the press conference, and I don't know why is not Sarri talking the day before the match, but Lazio decided to pick a player and make him do the press conference, which is useless. But Reina said that Adamonis is improving a lot. So I don't know if Adamonis will be the future goalkeeper backup for Lazio. But selling Strakosha in January, if he doesn't renew, makes sense. We know that Premier League teams has been watching Strakosha in the past year. The question is, Alasdair, how much can you ask for a player that is gonna run out of contract in 6 months?
Well, I think Lazio would be delighted if there was Premier League interest, because everybody knows that clubs ask for more from Premier League clubs than from anyone else, really. But yeah, you're right. That it's a hard bargaining position for Lazio to be in. If they're not going to give him a new contract, or if he's not going to sign one, they can't exactly demand an awful lot for their, a guy who has been their second choice goalkeeper for a year and a half now. So we'll see. I mean, to be honest, I find it quite hard to believe, simply because since this takeover happened, Newcastle have been linked with every player in Europe, I think. I'm pretty sure I saw a story saying they were expressing interest in Vittorio Campanile at one point as well. So,
well, someone mentioned Quagliarella, right? That makes me a little bit laugh, but And by the way, I'm a valuable player, so it makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, it does make me raise an eyebrow a little bit if it's
like Ancelotti.
This new era, yeah, exactly. If this new era, they see Lazio's number 2 as the guy to come in and be their, one of their first big signings. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, the squad in general, I don't, as we've always said, I don't think we should get our hopes up too much in January. But I think Cataldi is like the yardstick now for others. I mean, I had to look this up because I couldn't quite remember, but he's only 27. He only turned 27 in August. He feels like he's been around Lazio forever, just because he came through the youth teams. And like you say, he's someone that people talk a lot because he's one of the only kind of homegrown talents who's made it, who's a Lazio fan and so on. But I think that can be really encouraging to others. Seeing him get an Italy call-up, other guys who've been on the fringes of this team too can now look at him and say, well, he's not a completely different player than he was 3 months ago. He's just taken on the messages that Sarri's giving, and he's got the best out of himself in this system to put himself in a position to get international recognition. So, what I'm saying is, watch out, Patrick, for Spain at the next international break.
Remember, we have to thank Luis Enrique, who didn't call again Luis Alberto. Thank you very much. Don't think about Luis Alberto anymore. We'll keep it. He needs to rest.
But think about Patrick.
Think about Patrick. Yes, I think he can be very useful. And again, Alasdair, people were saying that Luis Alberto wasn't fit for the 4-3-3. I think he answered the question. Not only the goal, but another great performance from Luis Alberto.
Yeah, and like I already mentioned, I think it's kind of been like that ever since Sarri made that point.
Yeah.
Maybe he was too confident, too self-assured, because he's been one of the stars of this team for so long now, so sure of his position, that for a coach to come in and then pretty quickly kick him out of the starting lineup and publicly say, sorry, these guys can't play together, and Sergei's my man, basically, if it's down to one of you. It's great management. It's absolutely shocked him into this position where now he has to perform, and we've always known he's got the ability. So it's great to see, and his goal yesterday was superb, really, really nice. So yeah, I think it's just really good man management, isn't it?
Yeah, completely different style between Sarri and Inzaghi. I mean, Inzaghi would defend his players every time, even if they're completely wrong. And Sarri is more a direct manager. So, I think Luis Alberto had to adapt, because Luis Alberto was that type of player who sometimes sent the wrong messages under Inzaghi. And now he learned that probably with Sarri, he cannot do these things. But Sarri loved him. He thinks he's a great player, and finally we are all seeing Luis Alberto playing as expected. So this is definitely a great signal. One other thing, Alasdair, I wanted to mention is, at the moment, Lazio is 5th with just 1 point behind Atalanta. But you have to see the positive side, right? We knew that the beginning of the season would be very complicated, switching from the 3-5-2 to the 4-3-3 of Sarri. Sarri's mentality completely different. So you could expect Lazio having problems, flaws, strange defeat, unexpected defeat, etc. And still, 9th of November, and we are just 1 point behind Atalanta, who didn't change the manager, who kept all the quality players, who had a very good summer, etc. We are there, 1 point behind. We played against Atalanta away, and we should have won that match. So there are a lot of positive signs, considering that from now on, we could expect only the best of Lazio instead of the downhill or uphill. You never know what type of match you'll find.
Well, I think we always need to expect a bit of that.
Yeah.
I'm still not totally convinced that those days are behind us just because we've beaten Salernitana. But yeah, no, I mean, look, I think we would definitely have taken this situation if we were offered it at the start of the season, being 1 point off the top four by the November international break, third of the way through the season now. And I think as well, it's more just the general sense you get with this team where it feels like they're on an upward trajectory. Like you already mentioned, I think the main concern is, beyond the squad depth stuff, is how that fatigue, how that the amount of games they're playing will show in the later months of the season. And I guess that partly depends as well on how the European campaign goes and how far Lazio go in that competition. Although it is worth mentioning, in the Europa League now that they have removed one of the knockout rounds at least, so it is slightly less than it used to be. So we'll see. I mean, it's to be right behind Atalanta, who are, like you say, very much in a similar position to what they have been before, is really encouraging. And while Lazio are going one direction, Roma are going in the other. So it does go to show that new coaches, new eras, they are an opportunity to build and construct, and it's not an easy thing to do. So it's a good moment at the moment, but I don't know. I'm still not thinking that we're going to go and launch a Scudetto challenge quite yet.
No, I'm not. I think that's pretty hard, especially because we have to be honest. Milan and Napoli are playing great football. They're not dropping points. Well, this weekend I was a little bit surprised by Napoli not beating Verona at home. This a little bit gave us a little bit. We complain about our defeat against Verona, but this team is playing simply unbelievable football. And I have to be honest, Alasdair, I didn't expect Tudor coming in and having such a huge impact for this team. Di Francesco was a terrible manager, and I thought in the last 3 years he has been complete failure, but didn't expect Tudor coming in and has such a great performance. Plus, I wanted Simeone to Lazio, 3 years ago, and now seeing him scoring so often, it's a little bit a shame.
9 goals in 7 games, I think. It's ridiculous, really. One thing I also wanted to mention just on the Lazio season so far is just how good. I know as much as you love to peddle your conspiracy theory of me being a bad luck charm for Lazio, the home form has been outrageously good. And I read that that's the 16th win Lazio have had at home in 2021, which apparently the only time they've ever done that well before in a calendar year was in 1950. So
yeah,
it's incredible, really. They haven't lost in any competition since that Bayern defeat, and you can forgive yourself for losing to Bayern probably. So amazing, really.
Yep. This shows how many matches you missed at the Stadio Olimpico.
Yeah, I was at the Bayern game. The game before that, the last Serie A defeat was against Verona, obviously, again, last December. And I was also at that game. So, yeah.
I wasn't in both. So, I'm unbeaten at the Stadio Olimpico. So, Europe League considered as well. We mentioned it, right? Last year, when at the beginning of the season, so it was still 2020, where Lazio was struggling at home, we mentioned that the lack of fans in the stadium had an impact to this team. And I think that now that the fans are back, you can see that the team is playing differently at home. Maybe they're a little bit struggling away, but at home with the fans backing them, you can see that this team is playing great football.
Yeah, I mean, the away form is a bit of a concern, really, in comparison. But I think there's only been, one win. The Empoli game, the first game, I think, was the only one still. So then again, even though that wait goes on for another win, I think the back-to-back away games against Atalanta and Marseille, we were pretty encouraging despite not getting wins in those matches. I think the performances were good and the attitude was good. So hopefully that's a sign of improvement.
Yeah, honestly, Lazio could have won both matches, and probably against Atalanta, Lazio deserved to win. Was really unlucky to concede 2 goals at the end of the half, both half. So, and as well against Marseille, a little bit earlier, Marseille was a little bit lucky to score the equalizer, and after that we struggled. We have to admit that the biggest difference is that after Atalanta scored the second goal, the match was pretty much over. Against Marseille, they had, after that goal, a couple of very good chances. I could see Lazio losing that match. But overall, Lazio played well. And probably if they played against a lower team, probably Lazio would have won both matches. So that's definitely encouraging.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, obviously, the next one is Napoli. So that's a bit of a different task, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. That's different. And Lazio have struggled against Napoli away. So it's time to, finally win away at San Paolo in Serie A, because we won a couple of times in Coppa Italia. But I think last time we won was with Onazzi scoring, or we won after that. I don't remember. I didn't see the stats.
In Naples?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was you mean the one where the last day of the season to get in the Champions League?
4-2.
Yeah. God, I mean, I can't remember any others. I think that you're probably right, to be honest. And that was when? 2015? 2014? 13, 14, 15, something like that.
The first year of Stefan.
Yeah.
So,
too long.
I think we can wrap it up here, Alasdair Mackenzie. Again, thanks for joining me. I will try to book in your calendar for next week for a new podcast, if you have a little bit of spare time for me. And for all you guys, thanks again. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Remember, you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, or to our YouTube channel. And if you want to help us, we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at just $2 a month, and it helps us massively. We are now working for other special products. If you didn't, go and check my video on how to get to the watch a Lazio match. That could be very useful. And we went to watch the Stadio Flaminio. So if you want to know how are things now at the Stadio Flaminio, you can find our video in our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Alasdair. Goodbye, everybody.